To another episode of the Escaping Success podcast. Today, I am your solo host, Tom Leffler. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to discuss today why it's okay to not be okay. Me, myself, I struggled with why do I feel, depressed, anxious, sad, no motivation, not excited for life. Why do I physically feel off and I'd be frustrated or mad that I have these, quote unquote, negative feelings. And, I think it's good not to accept the negative feelings, but it's also okay to have them. I'd be frustrated and mad at myself for, not being grateful or not being excited for my life or not having motivation. Be like, why am I not okay? What's wrong with me? Why am I depressed right now? Or why am I so upset and what's wrong with me? Why do I have these feelings? Why am I not just excited? Why am I not grateful all the time? Why am I not, jazzed up, energized, all these things, And what I realized is it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay for myself to stay in a state where I'm not okay, if that makes sense. So I realized in the moment, beating myself up over not being okay or being depressed or anxious is not going to solve anything. It's not okay, wake up one day, no motivation, don't want to do anything. And so I'm why am I not okay? Why do I feel this way? And what's wrong with me? Versus hey, I accept right now, hey, I'm not, feeling the best. I'm a little under the weather, blue, but I'm going to, do stuff to make myself feel better. I'm not going to be what's wrong with you? Why am I not okay? What's wrong with me? You're a piece of shit. You gotta be better. I think it's good to accept for myself, hey, I'm not okay right now. And that's okay. It's a weird thing to say is hey, it's okay not to be okay. I think, so much of my life I compared myself to, Instagram version, other people, thinking everyone's killing it, doing so well, the happiest, successful, all this. But I realize it's most people are not okay and they're either running away from it or they're hiding it. They're trying to just show everybody I'm doing well, I'm killing it, I'm making six figures, my business is great, I got this beautiful girl, I'm jacked, I'm strong, I'm doing great. But on the inside, they might when they're driving to work, want to crash their car, That's a real thing. And it's okay not to be okay and to be vulnerable with yourself. And also, I guess, vulnerable with the right people. I would caution people to not open up with the wrong crowd. Make sure you really trust them. I guess the first person you really open up and trust is yourself. And then, being hey, I'm not okay right now. And that's okay. But it's not okay to stay here and just, relive and, kind of just mix up, stir up, and just kind of live in this suck pit of not be okay. It's okay though to not be okay, accept it, and try to do things and try different things to feel better. I think that's important. But I think it's okay to accept, I'm not okay. This situation is not okay. I thought this job would make me happy, but I'm not happy. Or I thought this relationship would make me happy, and I'm not happy. Or I thought, doing these things or having these goals and dreams would make me happy, but they didn't, and that's okay. It is sometimes crap, I put all this time and energy, invested all this, and I should be happy or this should give me what I wanted. And I'm pissed and frustrated that, it didn't, because that was my situation. I had to set goals and I aspired to reach them. And when I reached them, I was crap, this is not what I wanted. And I just kind of try to tell myself or lie to myself that everything's good, I have the goals, I have everything I wanted, everything's good, but realistically inside I was I'm not okay, this is not good, something's got to change. So I think it comes to accepting the feeling of it's okay not to be okay. And then the next step for myself was okay, Jordan Peterson says, now, aim up, be better than yesterday. Compare yourself to yesterday. I think myself, I do this all the time. You see people killing it, hashtag killing it, Instagram, social media, what have you, everyone's in the best shape. They, have the best partner, they have the best relationship, they have the, best car, they have the best job, they have the best physique, everything is better in that on there compared to yourself. And so you automatically are like, well, what the fuck? But I realized it's like, hey, if you actually go meet a lot of these people, or, you kind of go through the weeds, like, they're not okay either. Most people are not okay. And like, that's just the way it is. But it's important to realize, you could, for myself, that, it's okay not to be okay, accept it, but not accept the current situation forever, accept it as now, but it's like, what's the next best thing I could do? How do I break out of this? Like, how do I be better than I was yesterday? Or how do I work towards something like a better situation? Or, say for example, like, I'm not okay with how I feel about myself in the context of, my relationship with God. Let's just say that, like, I don't like my spirituality relationship. Like, I'm not okay that, like, hypothetical, I don't have a good relationship with God. Okay, I'm accepting, like, where I am. I don't like where I'm currently am. I'm being real with myself. I'm not lying to myself. Like, hey, this is where I am. I'm not okay here, but I'm gonna work on getting better. I think it's accepting, hey, I'm not okay here, being real and honest with myself, and then now, what's the next best step? Like, okay, for me, might be, I'm gonna pray every day, or it could be, I'm gonna go to church once a week, or it could be, I'm gonna read the Bible. Like, there's things to do. But for so long, like, I would lie to myself and be like, I'm doing great. Like, everything's fine. Like, I love this job, like, or I love, like, my relationship with God, like, everything's good. But then when I got tested, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I guess perfect example with my spirituality, like, it is now a lot better than it was backtrack almost 2 years ago. I had a relationship with spirituality. Like, I believe I'm, raised up Catholic. I'm kind of Catholic/Christian. I do believe in Jesus, like, all that, just me personally. And I was in the hospital and I was on my deathbed. And, in that situation, when my faith and spirituality was tested, I did not really have a good relationship, if that makes sense. So on the outside, or I kind of lied to myself, like, yeah, I got a good relationship with God. Like, I believe that, like, higher power, all that. But when it actually got tested, the lie didn't really hold true anymore. The feet fell under the table. And I was like, oh, you think you really have good, relationship with, a higher power? Let's see if you do. And in that situation, I really didn't, because in that I was like, no way, like, God's real, or no way this could, if I'm suffering this much. But through that experience, it kind of revealed to me, hey, I got to work on this. I got to work on my spirituality, a better relationship with God. So when I get tested like this in the future, I don't crumble, if that makes sense. So it opened my eyes to what I need to work on. And I think this is the beautiful thing about accepting not being okay, or accepting areas of myself that need improvement, and just being real and honest, is like, okay, it sucks in the moment. Like, hey, it sucks saying, like, hey, I'm not okay right now. Like, my life sucks, or my work sucks, or my relationship sucks, whatever it is. Like, it just sucks. But acknowledging it and being honest about it then gives you opportunity to then grow from it, and just being real, instead of, for myself, like, telling myself the story, the lie, not being real. It just perpetuates a cycle of nothing changes. Versus when you're real, like, hey, I'm not okay. The situation's not okay. Okay, I gotta fix this. Like, something's gotta go here. I gotta do something about it. Or it could be the hard scenario, which I was like, this situation wasn't really good, but I ignored it and said, hey, I don't really need that. Like, that's not that important. Like, whatever, I'll deal with that later. And then it came right in my face, which unfortunately, most people, myself included, really have to learn the hard way, where basically you eat shit to then learn the lesson. But it took me eating shit to realize, like, oh, I gotta really work on this. Like, my spirituality, like, this area is not that good. So for me, it's now praying every day, reading the Bible when I can, trusting and believing that for myself, going to church when I can, like, doing those things. Now, hopefully, if I do get presented with another crazy situation like I had with my health issue, I'm not in a situation where my spirituality crumbles. I could lean on that, like, kind of base, or that leg in the table to be like, hey, I have a good foundation here. I could work with this. Like this could help me get me through. Versus like in the past when I didn't have that foundation and I lied to myself, it just get crumbled. So basically, I realized myself it's like it's good to accept and acknowledge areas where I'm not okay, and it's okay not to be okay, and then just be real and honest with myself, and then not accepting the fact that this will always be the situation, accepting